Today we will have a new talk about, I think, a very familiar topic because it exists for a real long time. So it's about a world where history is taught through a first-person account rather than textbook. So I think it is right because nowadays when I learn history, I feel a bit boring because the teacher just taught and read again what the context in the textbook talk about. Just that. So I think that is a bit boring because if she didn't read for us, we can read it ourselves. She didn't have anything news for us.
Well, in this kind of situation, I kind of think the opposite because when we have the opportunity to have a first person, the person has went through a lot and they have, for example, they have found out about this part of history and they will teach us. That's great. But how can we afford those people? Because around the world, there are lots and lots of students around the world. So how can this one person just teach the student? That's kind of like impossible.
Yeah, so I think maybe if we still learn with the textbook, so we have to change the kind of teaching method to make it more interesting. So maybe like tomorrow, you and so I will have a trip to a historic place. So I think that is a good one. So sometime, not all the way, but sometime we can organize some trip like that for students to learn about history. So that kind, I think, a method for a student, not just boring because it's a trip, people think it's a trip, so they will feel more interesting and exciting to hear all the things rather than just sit in a class.
But there's a problem with the strip because even though the strip is supposed to teach us about history, right? But some students just think it's a trip to play and they do not focus on the knowledge very much. So that's the problem because even though tomorrow we will go to a historical place to learn history and lots of other things, but some of my classmates, they plan what to wear, they plan about their hairstyles. So it's kind of like a trip to play, not a trip to experience to learn about history anymore.
But after, because I also experienced your trip because I've learned at that school. So after that trip, we have to make a report, and I have made a report of 8 page. Then everyone have to make a report. If like the time when they sitting there, they standing there, they didn't hear anything. So when they come back home, they have to find some information online and they write down. So that is the kind of learning. And after then, so like my class nowadays, it's a bit like different. So we have to find about the kind of history people about Nguyễn Bình Khiêm, and then we have to make a report like it a kind of like a newspaper, a news about him. And after that, the school will choose like the best class, the best production, the best product, and that classmate in that class will have a presentation out of the school. I think that is a good one.
We're going off topic here, so let's get back to the topic. Is that the topic said that should we learn history by first people's account or rather than textbook? So there are some problems here because nowadays we always feel like students are not interested in history very much. Nearly all students are not interested in history. There are two problems. First problem is that they hate it. Second problem is because of the teaching method. Because teachers nowadays they teach too boring, and in some schools they teach like they just read for us to write in our notebook, and their purpose, their aim is to help us ace our final exam in history. So it's not just if that's the purpose, then we should not be learning history. But I don't think we should all learn history by first people account since it's like actually pretty impossible to learn from it. So there's a famous person called Levin Lang, right? He's a very famous historian. So how can we afford to get him to go to every class and every school to teach the students? We cannot do that. That's impossible. So I think in this situation there must be other ways to have a better method. For example, in my international school, IB school, their way of teaching history is actually pretty fun because I hate learning history in my Vietnamese school, but I love learning history in my international school in the evening. Since the first thing is that before 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 a topic, teachers tend to ask us questions and give us some guesses. So, for example, we learn about the French and Indian War. So the teachers will ask us, what do you know about the French and Indian War, and what will happen in the French and Indian War, and lots of other thinking questions too. So in this way, students will actually think about it, and they can have like a different mindset about this history thing, and most importantly, a lot of teamwork. Because in some kind of history, when my teacher sets a problem, for example, this problem, should the French or the Indian take the war? Who should get the war? So in this problem, students have to think, and in the class there will be two sides. Some students think that the French should take the war, the others should take the Indian War. So we will have like discuss about it, and the class will be very fun instead of just noting down and writing all the time.
Yes, I agree with you. I also said that we have to change the method because we don't have enough people to teach about this kind of subject. And also teacher, like history teacher, is also the kind of teaching. I think they have to change. I think the problem is not about like the student hate it. We not hate the history. It's just like we don't have the enough curiosity about this kind of subjects because because the teaching person, he or she cannot like pull up our curiosity, and they just like teach in the traditional way, just like talk, they read, they speak out loud, and we have to note that down. And when we have exam, we have to like learn by heart all of that. We have to remember all of that and write down without understand that. So we not like learn for understanding. We just like learn for the exam. We just learn for like getting the enough high score.
Let's get back to the topic, is that if it's like a real discussion and a real debate, so which side will you take on? Should we learn history by the first person account or rather than textbook? So which will you choose? Which do you prefer?
I think with the textbook more.
Why do you think so?
So because it's sad that learning with textbook, but it's not sad that without the teacher at school. So I think when we learn with textbook, the student, if they know the right method, they can boost the curiosity of people. The student feel more exciting. So I think it will be a success in teaching this kind of subjects. So maybe like you said, we can ask some funny question to make a student thinking about the problem we will study in that lessons. And also after that, maybe we will have some games, a bit like Q&As, or maybe we like play crossword, maybe that, like some kind of thing that can have students review about that. And also sometimes we can organize some trip, as I say. So that is a good thing because we all know that there are not enough people, like for some kind of people that first account of that problem, to go all the school, to go every class to teaching about that. First is we don't have enough money to afford for that person, and the second one, it is impossible for that person to go to every school, every class in the whole country.
Well, for me, I kind of like think both sides, but if I had to choose, so I would definitely choose first person accounts, because in this situation, when you said about textbook, maybe you just said maybe all the time. You said like 1,000 maybe words in the thing you just explained. So I don't see any proofs you would have to me, because it's all the maybe. Maybe we're not. Maybe we'll play crosswords. Maybe students will be interested in learning a textbook with teachers. Just maybe. It's not definitely. So for me, I think you should learn by first person accounts, because that person does not always have to go to every school to teach history. Instead, there will be a kind of seminar which that person will go through online through Zoom or through other kind of website, and maybe in because this doesn't mean that every lesson this first persons have to teach it. It does not mean like that. So for about once a week, maybe that person will go through online, and all the school will go through online with the students in the school playground, and will listen to the first person's account. So it doesn't stop doing that and concentrate. So it does not mean that that first person account have to go to every lesson to teach the students in person. Instead, they can always go through Zoom. And then textbook. During a survey in 2018, they said that textbooks, it is just predicting history. Why are they predicting history? Those textbooks are written a long time ago, and for a really long time they haven't changed the history textbook. And they haven't changed history textbook. So those information in the history textbook are not always right. And how can students cram all of those knowledge inside their head into the textbook? So teachers nowadays, there must be some other ways to teach them. And I don't see any other ways.
So I have to ask you again because firstly, when you find about this topic, you decided to me it's just a discussion, it's not a debate. So what kind of this is right now?
I just want to prove my point because I asked you, should we do this?
So I want to know if it is a discussion or what is debating.
Alright then, so here's the thing is that when I told you, what do you choose? You said textbook. So I said I disagree with it and I choose first person accounts. So I'm proving my point. So there's nothing wrong about it.
But I think if we decide that we can go online once a week like that, and every school will go once a week like that, but there's a really big problem because the amount of internet cannot really big like that to have a really big Zoom that every school can go in there. It will be out of battery, out of load.
How? Because around the world, there are lots and lots of first person accounts, not just one person, remember? So each city or maybe each area, I guess, each city will have one person because I don't say that the entire Vietnam, there are like hundreds of schools, just go through one Zoom because there are lots of first person accounts and each person will take over one city and each school only need one Zoom since the student will sit all in the schoolyard to learn.
But if we learn like that, because you know that when we're learning online, the kind of learning that is not really effective because the student cannot concentrate. Like when we have some people to keep an eye on them.
How do you explain to me that students will not concentrate?
You can see that from the learn online when we just like one person with the one computer, we also not concentrate because we will do something like playing game, or maybe we can watch YouTube, we can watch film, we can chat with a friend. Just like it went up one person and one laptop or on a computer. So how can like a whole school, really many people like that, with a one big screen and 100,000 of students sit on the yard can keep concentrate? Because for example, when my school had a competition for the teacher days, so for the first time, like from the beginning, maybe they really concentrate, but after that, when we keep up to the end, they maybe some student, they will go out without the permission of the teacher. And also I think that if we like from outside, I think instead of learning through Zoom like that, so maybe that kind of person, so they will filming a video and post it online, and then in the lesson the teacher can open that video for a student to see and ask them like after that video what have they learned, what have they think.
So you're proving my point. You're proving my point that we should learn first person accounts, and you're giving even more points, actually, by saying
because I'm not taking this area debate.
Yeah, me too. I just said that you're proving my point. You understand, because the discussion is that I asked you before this is that which do you prefer, and I actually have a different view from you. I don't have your view, and I explain why I think like that. So why are you being so angry? If you want to talk, then fine, we can stop right now. And also, what do you think about the methods? What methods should teachers take?
The method I have said many times with you before is that we will have organize some trip, organize some game, or maybe crossword, and also as I said earlier, just a few seconds ago, that their first account, the first person account, they may filming a video, or not just all the person. The teacher can easily find video about the kind of history issues they want to teach about and open for the student to see. And after that video, ask them about what have they learned, what have they heard about. And so like my class when we learn history is very funny because for example tomorrow we will learn about like Vietnamese wars. The teacher will divide our my class into 4 groups, and each group will have a presentation, a PowerPoint, about one issues. And uh, so when we have that presentation, we can like make the PowerPoint. We have to find information about that. So that kind of what we have to learn. And so when we come to the lesson, the 4 group will like take turn to have the presentation, and she will mark the point for us.
That's a good thing, but what do you think? How can we do this? Because nowadays, there are some schools that they have great method to teach history, but others that they do not focus on history very much. So, what can we do to spread this awareness to every school so that they should consider history as one of the main subjects, just like math or English, not like just a side subject? How can we do that?
I think that like the thought that just math and language and Vietnamese is the main subjects is like exists for a real long time, because when you have exam we just like have exam of that 3 main subjects. Nobody think that history is the main subject. Also, I think it's really, really important. So one kind of uh, solution right now, I think you have to take history as the main subject when you have some exams, some contests, so that you can find out how important of learning history is. And also beside that, because nowadays um, we don't have many situation that can put what we learn in history into the real world, into a real life. So many person, they also don't understand the importance of learning history because we don't have anything to compare with that.
The first thing we can definitely do is putting history into literature. So, for example, some essay we need to write about, we can write about some kind of war. So, during the World War II, lots of people starved. So, what can we do to help them? If you are the soldiers, maybe. So, the first thing we can do is putting history in literature.
I think literature now they also have one part of history, because when we learn about some kind of poems, some kind of long essays, it related to history. So we have to find out about like the people, the person who write about that poem, or the long essays, the author of that of that kind of text. And when we learn about that, if the person is related to history, so we also have to find out like when what happened at that time, like in what kind of situation did the author write about the poem or the essays.
To say the honest thing is that the teachers actually find out about this for us, not we find about that
Yes.
ourselves.
And also like the teacher forced us to learn by heart. So we just like learn like a parrot. We didn't understand about that.
So the first thing is that we had to stop learning literature, like learning.
We have to write ourselves.
Yeah, that's true. That's what I'm gonna say. I'm running out of word. So for example, just try it like this. Try the educators should try to have a test which no one knows what the test will be about, and then that will consider who is the good student. Because nowadays there are some good students, but they are just parrots.
Yeah,
they are not true good students.
Or maybe they practice too much. That like they really influence in that.
That's true. So we should definitely have a test like that, but we are just one individual. In order to do that is that we have to do a protest.
Yes, and also like the authority also have to understand about that.
That's true. The authorities, most importantly, because only us cannot do anything at all. We're not good as Enbridge, so we cannot do anything like that.